morning, grade 7s, and welcome to your mathematics lesson on Friday, the 8th of May. Hope you guys are well and have had a really good week. A reminder of the email address on your screen, grade7@worksheetcloud.com. Please send me any questions or queries that you might have regarding grade 7 mathematics. Okay, so today we're going to have a look at measurements. And on either side of that, you've got your warm-ups and your challenges. So let's get straight into it. Let me know what the value of the symbols are, and don't forget the question mark at the end. Right, off you go. So multiples of 3 today, and what do I mean by that? Pretty much all the answers are multiples of 3. So I started here on the third line, and I did use a bit of trial and error. I eventually got to 12 equals 9 divided by 3, which is 3 plus 9 gives me 12. So remember here I do this part first because division is the first operation that needs to be done. I then went and looked at here, 9 must be equal to 3 plus 3 plus 3. Okay. Then here on this fourth line, I went 9 minus 3 equals 6. And then I had 6 plus 3, I think it was, yeah. Minus 6 plus 3 is equal to 6. Okay, and that works out. And then my sum at the end is going to be 3 multiplied by 6 multiplied by 3. And you can do that in any order. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 6 is 54. Or you could have done 3 times 6 is 18. 18 times 3 is also 54. So that's your answer for your warm-up for today. And then here are your mental arithmetic questions for today. Just having a look at some previous principles. Make sure you read the question carefully. Make sure you check your work once you've finished. And make sure you recognize whether I'm asking you to do 1, 2, or 3 various things on each question. Right, press pause and give them a shot. For question number 1, 4 bricks together have a mass of 200 grams. Okay, and we need to figure out a mass of 2.5 kilograms. So the first thing that I would do is convert 2.5 kilograms to 2,500 grams. And then I need to figure out how many times does 200 grams go into 2,500 grams, okay? And I know that 12 multiplied by 2 is 24, so 12 multiplied by 200 is going to give me 2,400, okay? So 12 groups of 200 go into 2,400. So there are 4 bricks in each 200 grams, so that must give me 48 bricks. Okay, then I've just got 100 grams to go, and if I know 4 bricks equals 200 grams, then half of that must be 2 bricks, which give me that 100 grams. So it's 48 plus 2 gives me 50 bricks. Okay, so if you go and work that out, how many groups of 4 are there in 50? There are 12 groups of 4 in 50. 12 times 200 is 2,400. And then I take those additional 2 bricks, which we worked out was 100 grams, put it with the 2,400, and we get our 2,500 grams, which is 2.5 kilograms. Okay, second question. The key here is to convert all of them to the same unit. So what I did is I worked in centimeters. So 0,750 meters is 75 centimeters. Okay, remember to get from meters to centimeters, we can just multiply by 100. So millimeters to centimeters, we divide by 10. So that's 35 centimeters. And 40 centimeters is already there for us. And if I add all of those together, you get 150 centimeters. The same thing would have applied if you had converted it all to millimeters or to meters. You would have ended up with 1,5 meters or millimeters 1,500. Okay, so that's your answer for number 2. Number 3, you needed to work out percentages of amounts. Now, there are 2 ways that you could do this. You could have either recognized that 25% and 75% are going to give you 100%. So 100% of 1,000 or 1,280 liters is actually going to give you 1,280 liters. Okay. However, if you hadn't have recognized that, you should know that 25% is a quarter. So we need to know a quarter of 1,280 liters. And 1,280 divided by 4 is 320. And then for 3 quarters, we will multiply that amount by 3. And that's going to give me 960. And then if I add 320 plus 960, that's going to give me my total of 1,280 milliliters, which is 1,280 liters. Okay, so if you didn't recognize that 25% plus 75% is 100%, which is a whole, then you could have worked out a quarter, 320, then recognize that 3 quarters is just 320 multiplied by 3, added the 2 amounts together, and you would have got 1,280 liters or 1,280 milliliters. Question 4, to rent a DVD machine is 1,500 Rand per year. How much is this per month? So a long division sum really is 1,500 divided by 12, and I would use this, I would work this out by halving both numbers. Okay, so remember, if we do the same thing to the dividend and the divisor, our answer remains the same, and I can halve them again, and now I've got a much easier short division sum, and you can work that out using this method, and that will give you 125 Rand. Okay, so it's 125 Rand per month to rent the DVD machine. Then question 5, just looking at angles in quadrilaterals. Okay, and we know that in a parallelogram, opposite sides are parallel. So that means that angle Y, and let me just enlarge this picture quickly. Okay, we know that 115 plus angle Y, those angles need to be supplementary because these 2 lines are parallel because it's a parallelogram. So what do I add to 115 to get to 180? Yes, Y equals 65. If Y equals 65, then we know that this angle Y plus angle X are supplementary because these 2 lines are parallel. Okay, and we can put a double arrow there to show that they're different to the other pair of lines. And what do we add to 65 to get to 180? X must equal 115. You could have also said X is 115 because opposite angles in a parallelogram are equal. So these 2 angles are going to be equal. And if you had worked out Y and you needed to work out the angle at D, you could have said that D was equal to 65, also because opposite angles in a parallelogram are equal. But the co-interior angles being supplementary are just as good a reason as opposite angles being equal. Okay guys, I hope you remembered those principles that we've worked through previously. If not, then please go and have a look at the previous lessons. There's online activities for you to consolidate, revise, and to keep things fresh in your mind, and I'd encourage you to go and use those as much as possible. Okay guys, so we're going to look at measurements today. And first we're going to look at the metric system, and the metric system of measurement is based on powers of 10 and uses the following prefixes. So prefixes are parts of a word or the beginning of a word. So we've seen the word kilo before, and kilo means 1,000. Okay, so kilogram, 1,000 grams. Kilometer, 1,000 meters. Kiloliter, 1,000 liters. Okay, we also have seen the word centi that comes at the beginning of a word, and centi means 100th. Okay, so centimeter, 1 centimeter is 100th of a meter. Okay, and millimeter or milli means 1,000th, and millimeter, there's 1,000 millimeters in a meter. So 1 millimeter is 1,000th of a meter. We can also see the word micro. We don't often see it in our syllabus in grade 7, but micro means 1 millionth. So when you do see that, then you're aware of what micro means. So micrometers, there are 1 million micrometers in a meter. Okay, so 1 micrometer is 1 millionth of a meter. So these prefixes are then followed by a base unit. Okay, and the base unit for length is meter. So we know kilometer, centimeter, millimeter, micrometer. The base unit for mass is gram. So kilogram, centigram, milligram, microgram. And then for capacity is liter, kiloliter, centiliter, milliliter, microliter. Okay. Metric units of length, mass, and capacity. You should know the following metric conversions for length, mass, and capacity. You know that, well, you should know from grade 5 and 6, and possibly even grade 4, that in a kilometer is 1,000 meters, in a meter is 100 centimeters, in a meter there are 1,000 millimeters, and 10 millimeters in a centimeter. For mass, a ton is 1,000 kilograms, a kilogram is 1,000 grams, and 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. And for capacity, you've got 1 liter, which equals 1,000 milliliters. A centiliter is 10 milliliters. 1 meter cubed is 1,000 liters. And 1 centimeter cubed is 1 milliliter. So the last two there, the meter cubed and the centimeter cubed, might be 2 new things that you might be seeing today. So guys, I thought it would be a good idea just to go through multiplying and dividing by 10, 100, and 1,000 again, as this is really the backbone of how we convert between units of measurement. So on the screen, you've got different units of measurement that I'm sure you're all aware of. And each unit of measurement works a little bit differently. So we know that distance is millimeter, centimeter, meter, kilometer, weight grams and kilograms, and capacity milliliter and liter. And as we've already said, you need to be able to multiply and divide by 10, 100, or 1,000 to change from one unit of measurement to another. So let's have a look at what we would do with centimeters and meters. So we know that there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So to get from centimeters to meters, we divide by 100. Okay. Now, when we divide by 100, as you can see on the screen, we're looking at 427 centimeters. How many meters is that? So I've got my numbers in my place value columns. So 400 in the hundreds, 2, which is 20 in the tens, and 7 units in the units column. Obviously nothing in the tens, hundredths, or thousandths column after the decimal. So when I'm going to divide by 100, my numbers get 2 places smaller. Okay, so there it's 1 place smaller, 2nd place smaller, and now the 4 and the 2 need to shift up 2 places, and there we're left with 4,27 meters. Okay. So therefore, 427 centimeters equals 4,27 meters. So there are 3 for you to do. I'll give you a couple seconds to work through those, and let's see if you guys can get the correct answer. 326 centimeters, I need to divide that by 100, and you would have been quite correct if you had said 3,26. So there you can see the 6 moves 2 places from the units to the hundredths. The 2 moves 2 places from the tens to the tenths, and the 3 moves 3 places from the hundreds to the units. 47.6 centimeters, you would have been correct in saying 0.476 meters. And again, we're dividing by 100. There are 2 zeros in the number 100. So that tells us how many places the numbers must move. Notice the decimal always stays in the same place. So the 6 goes from tenths to thousandths. The 7 goes from units to hundredths. And the 4 goes from tens, because it's 40, so 4 tens, and it ends up in the tenths column. For 165.3, you would have been correct in saying that that's 1,653 meters. And you can see how the numbers move 2 places to the right. Okay, so there's some more practice for you. I'll give you guys some time to work through it. Press pause. When you've worked through those 7 examples, press play and see if you guys have mastered that skill. So there's 354 centimeters in meters. In the next one, 15.4 centimeters, 0.154 meters. And I'll just put these on the screen. I don't think I need to read them to you. I'm sure you guys can read off the screen comfortably. And just make sure that you recognize that each number from centimeters is getting 2 places smaller because we're dividing by 100. Okay, so now we want to go the other way. Now we want to go from meters to centimeters, and here we just do the opposite. So we multiply by 100. So there you can see it says, remember, when we multiply by 100, we move each digit 2 places to the left because now they are getting bigger. Okay, so there you can see the 3 will move 2 places from the unit to the 100. The 5 will move 2 places from the tenth to the 10. And the 1 will move from the hundredth to the unit. And 3.51 meters is 351 centimeters. So there are a couple for you to practice. Press pause and let's see how you get on. Answers and put them up on the screen for you to read off. And again, just notice that each number gets 2 places bigger. And yeah, I encourage you guys to make sure you fully understand these concepts. A brief overview of multiplying and dividing by 100. If we have to multiply and divide by 10 and or 1,000, then the same rules apply. Just make sure that if it's multiplying or dividing by 10, you recognize that the number gets bigger or smaller by 1 place, and by 1,000 your number gets bigger or smaller by 3 places. And then it is very important for you to understand and know how many grams go into a kilogram. Okay, how many centimeters go into a meter, or millimeters go into a meter, etc. And that goes back to what we said at the beginning of the lesson, where kilo means 1,000, or centi means 100, and milli means 1,000th. Okay, so just make sure that you go over that part of the video if you're not 100% sure. I hope that kind of refreshed that principle for you. The next thing we move on to is metric units for area. Okay, so millimeters squared, centimeters squared, etc. And how do we work those out? So 1 meter squared is 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters, which is a meter times a meter. And 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters is 10,000 centimeters squared. Okay, so very useful to keep that in the back of your mind. The same with 1 centimeter squared. I convert the 1 centimeter times 1 centimeter into millimeters. And then I recognize that 1 centimeter squared is actually 100 millimeters squared. And it works the same for cubic measurements, and cubic measurements are used for capacity and volume. All right, so if I want 1 meter cubed, okay, which is 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, length times breadth times height. So that's 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters, because when we cube something, we multiply it by itself 3 times. And that's going to give me 1 meter cubed is 1 million centimeters cubed. Okay, so quite a large volume It just makes you realize by doing the conversion from meters to centimeters just how much volume there is in a meter cubed. Okay, and the same for centimeter cubed. I convert it to millimeters and I go 10 times 10 times 10 because they're 10 millimeters in a centimeter, and that gives me 1000 millimeters cubed. Okay, so fill in the missing word and think back to the other presentation I talked you through to convert from a larger metric unit to a smaller one. So if I want to go from meters to centimeters, I would multiply by 10, 100, or 1000. Okay. Sometimes there's a bit of confusion because we're going from a larger to a smaller unit and then we're multiplying. We'd expect to go from a larger to a smaller that we might divide, but just remember that there are more centimeters than meters. Okay, so 100 centimeters in 1 meter. That's what I'm referring to. So to go from the larger metric units, from like a meter to a centimeter, we multiply. So if I said to you convert 0.43 kilograms to grams, you should be aware that I multiply by 1000 to get from kilograms to grams, and that gives me 430 grams. Okay. Then to convert from smaller to larger, so the opposite way, and yes, you're quite correct, it would be divide. So if I wanted to go, for example, from 430 grams to kilograms, you can see I'll just divide by 1000 to get to 0.43 kilograms. So here I've got 7.6 centimeters. How many meters is that? I would say 7.6 divided by 100. And that would give me an answer of 0.076. And I would encourage you to go back and have a look at the presentation I showed you where we multiply and divide by 10, 100, and 1000, and how the numbers move according to whether you're multiplying and dividing and how they change from one place value to the next, which is the base 10 system. Because to move from one place value to the next one, for example, from tens going smaller to units, you divide by 10, or to go from hundreds to a unit, you divide by 100, okay, which is 10 squared or 10 times 10, and that's why we call it a base 10 system. I just wanted to go through imperial units for you. They're not often used in South Africa, but I still think it's worthwhile to know. So what are imperial units? So your imperial units are feet and inches. So if you hear somebody saying, I'm 6'3", how tall are they? So if there's 12 inches in 1 foot, so 6 foot would be 6 times 12, 72 inches plus the 3. So if I'm 6'3", I'm 75 inches. Okay. I'm sure we've heard about the measurement of yards before. So how many yards are in a feet? So 3 feet is 1 yard. Pounds and ounces is quite a common one that you might have heard, particularly if you work in the kitchen or you cook and bake with mom or dad in the kitchen. A lot of recipes use pounds and ounces, as well as milliliters, grams, things like that. But there's 16 ounces in 1 pound. 1 stone is a really old way of measuring things. So in years gone by, you might have heard somebody saying, hey, I weigh 7 stone, or I weigh 10 stone, and that's a really old imperial unit that they would have used in old days, but it's still really useful to know that they're 14 pounds in a stone. And to get from pounds to kilograms, we divide by 2.2. So it's 2.2 pounds in a kilogram. And then 1 gallon. A gallon is largely an American measurement. And when they fill up their cars, they use gallons at times. And a gallon is 8 pints. Okay, so there's some imperial units for you just to keep in the back of your mind. It's always useful to know about these things instead of not knowing about them. Okay, so we can convert between imperial units using the following approximations. So there are 1.6 kilometers in a mile. So if I have 5 miles, I need to multiply it by 1.6 to get to kilometers. 1 foot is about 30 centimeters. 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters. A kilogram, 2.2 pounds, as I mentioned earlier. A gallon, 4.5 liters. So why is it useful to know that? Well, if someone said to you, how far is 10 miles? Okay, I can just double the 8 kilometers to 16. Or how many centimeters is 3 feet? 90 centimeters. Okay, so if you were 6 foot, you would multiply 30 by 6, gives you 180 centimeters, which is 1.8 meters. So it's just, I think, very handy to know this kind of stuff rather than not know it. So if 1 kilograms is about 2.2 pounds, how many kilograms are there in 1 stone? And if we have a look at this, 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds. If we go back and look at the stones, there's 14 pounds in a stone. Okay, so how would we work out how many kilograms in 1 stone? So we have that information. As I went back and showed you, every 2.2 pounds is a kilogram. So we need to divide the 14 pounds by 2.2, and that will give us about 6.4 kilograms. Okay, so 1 stone is 6.4 kilograms. Okay, so guys, that's metric units and imperial units. I encourage you to go have a look at your online activities and memos for today. I've left you with loads of conversions to practice to make sure that you understand exactly how they work. It's not really necessary to go and learn the imperial units off by heart, but I would encourage you just to know them or just to be familiar with them. You know, when you get to college, maybe they'll ask you some imperial units, and then you'll be lucky enough to know because of what we've spoken about today. So there's your 24 finisher for today, and I'm sure by now you know that you need to use all 4 numbers on each card with a combination of operational signs to get to the answer of 24. Give it a crack, challenge someone at home, see how many different ways you can get up to the answer of 24 and have a bit of fun with it. Cool, grade 7s, thanks very much for watching today. I hope you guys have a really blessed weekend. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys next week. All the best.